Hi, everyone. Thank you and welcome for coming to the public showcase of the first ever Brains and Games International Design Fiction Competition. This event is run by the Brains at Play initiative at the University of Southern California, and we are trying to facilitate the development of brain-responsive multiplayer games on the internet. And we're very excited for you to be here today. This year, we had 20 submissions from around the world, including Greece, India, Canada, the United Arab Emirates, and everywhere else in between. And all of these games were judged by a subset of 48 wonderful judges that were invited to review these games and provide their extensive feedback. From these judges' results, we were able to pick 12 top teams who are here today and who will be sharing their game ideas with you. In addition to promoting their games during this showcase, they will also be provided with copies of the Brain Architecture game provided by the creators of the Brain Architecture game, some brain sensing headsets to develop games with us at the Brains at Play initiative, and as mentioned, pitched during this public showcase. And all of these prizes, again, are generously supported by the creators of the Brain Architecture game, USC Visions and Voices, OpenBCI, Neurotech X, and the USC Media Arts and Practice Division at the School of Cinematic Arts. In addition to those general prizes for each of the 12 top teams, we're also able to provide $5,000 to support game development by the Smart VR Center and $1,000 to support game development by Inosis. And the winners of these prizes are Quell by Corpus Callosum and SamsaRa, Remember This Story by Immori. In addition, we have also gotten a nice surprise by Plux Wireless Biosignals, who have given us 3 Vitolino devices to distribute to our winners. And these will be decided as soon as we start distributing our headsets to our winners. So the structure of this event is as follows. We'll have 12 teams give 5-minute pitches. This will last about 1 hour. And then we'll open the session up to a networking session until around 11 a.m. Pacific time, where you all can freely distribute among breakout rooms and give your feedback and comments to the participants of this year's competition. So we can begin, and the first team will be AABrainGames presenting their game Exiled, the Return of the Pre-Civilization Era.
Hello.
If you all want to share your screen, you're free to do that, or you can just speak as you will.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Ali Reza. I'm going to present the game Exiled, the Return of the Pre-Civilization Era. The idea of our story is 1 minute there. I will. Yes, sir. The idea of our story is adapted for 2 online games, Fortnite and Minecraft. While playing these games, we were thinking about developing our own online game. The game is happening on an island full of exiled criminals. Each player is one of these criminals who should build his or her empire. This island is the pre-civilized version of humanity. Each player should find food, make tools out of the raw materials, and find a shelter. During these initial steps, players can communicate with each other, negotiate on their properties, and form groups. They can fight or negotiate to take the leadership of their group and to rule the other groups. The online game. Then we saw your competitions poster and decided to change our story and design so that players can play the game with B2B device. We think that the edited version of the game is much interesting than the initial version. Our game. The online game is not played with any joystick, keyboard, or mouse. Players should use B2B device to surf around, make tools, find things, and communicate with each other. They should think to do stuff on the island. The one with the greater power to concentrate, knowledge to build, and the skills to communicate is the one that rules the whole community. Players need to be creative to build things and persuade others. You should rule your mind to rule the island. How's it going? The game has a story mode and an open world mode, and each player can build his or her own character in the game. Open world mode. The game has a story and an open world mode, and each player can build his or her open world mode. Surfing the island, learning new skills, and having fun. Story mode. Doing the missions, upgrading the abilities, and ruling the island. This mode provides the information needed in open world game. Now we tell you some examples of actions in the game. Move around the island, walk, run, swim, ride a boat or an animal, and blah blah blah. Jump up the obstacles, pass them, sit down and lay on the ground. Take objects and hold them up, eat the food, make tools, choose a shelter, negotiate with others, choose to fight or not, fight, in case of fighting, choose their tool, choose to obey the rules or not, choose the leader. In the case of leadership, they should form the rule book empire. You can do this action by thinking, deciding, and using your brain and using your brain. And important. No insolence can happen between players. There is a strong reporting mechanism in the game. Brain communication are restricted to the game environment and finally, thanks for your attention.
All right. Thank you, Alireza. And the other person on your AABrainGames team. It's a wonderful presentation. And we would also like to acknowledge, and I forgot to mention this earlier, that the majority of our participants and winners of this competition were under the age of 18. And they presented some very interesting and very exciting games. And this is the same for our next team, Top Minds, who has created the game Think Together.
Hello, I'm Hector.
I'm Opamani.
I'm Stefanos.
And I'm Kivali.
We are
Top Minds.
And our game is called
Think Together.
in the game we have created. There are 4 players.
and they're all from different countries.
The purpose of our game is to send messages at schools, smartboards, and or other electronic devices to stop wars and racism. And try to make the world more peaceful for the next generations.
In our game, the players will be in 4 different places.
An island, a cave, a forest, and a waterfall.
At first, we wanted our game to have something to do with mystery.
But we really wanted to help people, so we came up with that idea.
We wanted the video to be fun, so we used Toon Dusting Cup to make it like a comic.
We made the sounds using our voices.
We believe that the most important thing in a team is that we all tell our opinion.
That's true. If we weren't together, there would be no way to succeed. So the key to be successful is teamwork.
Well, yeah. Anyway, we wanted people to start caring.
I know what you mean. If a parent's kid is friends with a kid from another country and those two countries are fighting,
The parents have to start caring about their kids' friendship.
Exactly.
yeah, this is our purpose.
Well, this was our presentation.
Thank you for your attention. Bye.
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 Thank you, Top Minds. That was a wonderful presentation and very, very exciting, very interesting. I love that you all went back and forth and gave us each of your own perspectives, just as your game suggested. Next up, we have Brainauts, who created Cosmic Brainauts as their game.
Good evening, everybody. We are Cosmic Brainauts from Lycellon in Asmyrni, Athens, Greece. This is a presentation from Anastasios' series, Aristogiannis Philippis, Eftalea Stefanidou, and Stavros Tanas.
In 1,000 years from now, Earth is about to be rendered uninhabitable. In search of a new home, humanity relies on cryostasis to finally colonize a distant planet. Deep space travels, once only possible through AI, are now easier since the crew members' brains are preserved at an energy-efficient but fully functional state. Thus, a special group of people called Cosmic Brainauts is actively engaged in this mission, sometimes taking contradictory sides. In Phase 1, teams from various backgrounds have the mission to find a habitable planet, which will be the next home of humanity. Traveling throughout the universe, they must explore different planets in multiple solar systems and detect the one that fulfills the necessary criteria. For example, the new planet must be at a safe distance from a star, referred to as being in a habitable zone, and there has to be liquid water on its surface. Now for the teams, as all players' body will be freezed, only their brain will function. In the beginning of the game, all players must choose which side they're on. They want to be a part of the anarchists, they prefer to work with the government, or they want to sabotage the whole mission because they believe that Earth was the only true home for humanity. Brain-to-brain interface and brain-to-machine interface will play a very important role in the exchange of information in long-distance communication, in the control of specially designed robots that will help minimizing the risk of a player's life. Don't forget that all players are frozen while traveling through space, so they can only communicate with the help of BBI.
But the game does not end there. A new survival chapter opens for the players that manage to find the new planet. On this planet, players will cooperate to transform the atmosphere and the terrain with the help of heavy machinery that they can control through brain-to-machine interface in order to host the whole humanity. During this transformation, players may discover new ores or other material that may help or slow them down if they are not careful in this journey. Moreover, they will have to deal with a lot of obstacles like new life forms, as well as precarious weather conditions or possible diseases previously unknown to humans. In order for players to survive, they must construct shelters as well as find a source of food and water for the first few months of the terraforming. During this process, players must not let their guard down because they cannot trust other teams. Don't forget, this is a competitive game. Now, about our ethical issues. How can we be sure that our thoughts are completely invisible in brain-to-brain interface? Each person's thoughts are protected from other brain-to-brain interface users by being encrypted. And so what will happen if we come across alien life forms for the first time? In this case, the universe should remain as it is, thus humans are not allowed to harm any alien form. Also, we humans have to develop ecological consciousness from the beginning. That's why this planet is another chance for humanity. So it is necessary to look back to the previous planet and learn from our mistakes. Now, something about our journey, the backstage of our game. Watching a presentation about brain-to-brain interface, we were called to imagine a brain-to-brain interface game. By brainstorming and literally spamming the site with the random card generator, we came up with the time and place of the gameplay.
With the help of the internet, we finalized the technical details.
Inspired by TV shows and movies, we came up with the different crews and type of players.
Today's climate change gave us the idea that someday in the future, our planet will be destroyed due to overpopulation, nuclear wars, or greedy resource extraction.
Thanks you for your time. This was our presentation from Cosmic Brainauts.
All right, thank you, Cosmic Brainauts. We'd now like to invite Contour and to present their game Desperate.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So the primary objective of this game, Desperate, is to analyze, emphasize, and understand the cooperation and competitive behaviors among human beings, the evolution of something like this. The game primarily has 3 state functions that define certain actions within the game. These state functions are triggered by, again, certain processes. What are these 3 state functions? The primary state function is, one of the primary state functions are the competitive state. The competitive state, 1 minute. Yeah, the first state function is a competitive state, which can be triggered via predefined action patterns mimicking negative emotions, evaluated by some underlying model that does this prediction. This competitive state triggers a UI that causes players to attack another player for in-game rewards. The process of killing someone else while talking to them is rewarding in itself, but it gives you points when you kill them. This is analogous to early homonyms that utilized intra-species competition, commonly done by a head bashing, still prevalent today, to achieve goals such as reproductive success, resource allocation among themselves, and etc. etc. The second state function is a cooperative state, which is again triggered by either the knot of the negative state or by predefined action patterns evaluated by underlying models. This is again analogous to humans cooperating with each other in the early stages. The another state, this again triggers the UI, which helps you exchange resources among each other. You can obviously be in one state at a time. You cannot be in 2 states at a time. The third state is the neutral state, which is neither of the above. It is just for you to run away as a player. Yeah, so where is this game played? This game is played in a maze. It's a 4-player game. It's played in a maze. The players can navigate through the maze and collect a bunch of different resources, weapons, power-ups. The situations that usually arise within this maze is when a player meets another player and can trigger the state, either by voice activation or by obviously the EEG data. The whole point of that is to evaluate that and to use that as a controller. They are among the presence of a bear, which is an agent. This agent, the primary objective of something like this agent is to kill the players. They want to punish the players whenever they come across a bear. Any state transition to if you want to enter a competitive state against a bear, which is extremely stupid because a bear is a really strong animal, will result in the death of the player. So it's useless to try to compete against the bear. The best you can do is try to exchange resources in order to run away. What do I mean by completing the game, or what is the achievement of the game? The primary goal of the game, which is initially hidden from the players but could be hinted, is the killing of the agent. The agent being a bear, that is an animal which is really strong, requires a threshold of human beings or players to cooperate with each other to kill it. The whole system of the bear, the players, and the objective of killing the bear is Byzantine faulty, which if a threshold of cooperation is not achieved. So if two people want to kill the bear together, but the threshold, which is a predefined number for the number of players required to kill the bear is 3, they will fail their goal. But they will not know if they failed their goal if the other two people are dead or they kill each other. So there requires consensus among all the 4 players to kill the bear. That situation of consensus is Nash equilibria, because I know there's no reason for me to compete with each other for resources when I know that the resource of the bear is the primary goal. Yeah, the achievement of something like this, that the completion of the game again relates to the change in incentive of competing against each other to competing to take a different objective or competing to solve a much greater goal in comparison to just killing each other for fun. This is very similar to how early humans transitioned from living all alone and just defending themselves to living in societies to try to hunt and kill many animals together. How many iterations of the game must be played until the players realize that killing the bear is the objective and cooperate with each other? I don't know. Does this relate to the change in the characteristics from early humans to Homo ergastus or whatever that word is? I don't know again. There are a few technical problems with something like this, which I failed to notice before I tried something like this. Are there predefined action patterns that result in a higher frontal coherence in alpha and higher right parietal beta as seen in a positive emotion if a positive emotion is evaluated by those parameters? I don't know. Something like this can be overcome and changed by just changing the EG data from right to left, which is a very easy way of, obviously you're going to use some kind of voice feedback to, tell players that the state has changed. So again, that's something that can be thought of later on. I'd like to conclude that something like this defines what is possible when humans cooperate and change the incentives of competition from simplistic goal achievement to much greater goal achievement and forming emotional bonds by cooperation and using the competition after these goals have achieved by distributing the resources and resource allocation after achieving something like that. Yeah, there's much can be achieved when you think. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rishab, for your presentation. Up next, we have LM21 and their game Odyssey, Wonderlust.
Hello, everyone. We're the LM21 team. My name is Agapi.
I'm Melanie.
And we would like to present you our game Odyssey Wonderlust. Our game's goal is to act as an outlet for children and teens to get positive emotions from in a fun and interesting way. Now we will introduce you to the characters. On the top left, we can see Hiron. Hiron is the protagonist of this game. And on his left is Damon. Damon is a demon.
The other characters we will see now. On the bottom left, we have the merchant. She's a nymph at the traveling Olympia in order to sell resources to help her village financially. In her village with the other nymphs lives Kali. Kali is a centaur and he's Hiron's best friend. They travel Olympia in order to find the secret keeper. He's the only one who knows where the demons live. And the reason for that is that he's a demon as well, which we learn later on in the story. He can be identified as a demon by the mascuons, which every demon has.
And now we move on to talk more about Hiron, the protagonist. He is the only playable character, and he can do many things.
He can run, of course, walk, jump, climb, and swim. When he carries too much loot, though, in his backpack, he's unable to run, swim, and climb because of the weight he's carrying. That's where Callie comes in. He has the ability to carry him on his back so he can continue on with what he was doing.
The players can also change Hiron's name, and they can integrate themselves further into the game by connecting their limbic system, which is responsible for emotions.
Here we can see the antagonist. His design has changed obviously a lot, but that's fine. We will ignore that for now. The art behind this game was generally inspired by spite, because ancient Greece generally represented by white and gold, even though many different colors were used in that time in history. So I wanted to represent that by using many colors in this art.
And now we will talk about a very important aspect of our game, the story.
The most important part of the story is the parallel between Hiron and Damon, because they're one or the other, kind of. Because at the start of the story, we learned that a demon is causing ruckus in Olympia, and Hiron has to find that demon. And in ancient Greece, demons are created by negative or positive thoughts. Either of the two can create a demon, because they were not always evil back then. And Damon, of course, is not necessarily an evil one, but an antagonist to the story. And Hiron needs to find out who had that negative thought that created him. And turns out that he's the one that had that negative thought. And because of those negative thoughts he had, the demon he created is causing ruckus everywhere, which is an allegory in real life, because we also need to be responsible for what we say, and when we do something wrong, we do need to fix it, which is something we apply in real life.
This was our presentation. We hope you liked the game. If you wanna ask any questions, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, LM21. Next up, we have It's a Pirate's Life for Me by J2K.
Hello, my name is Jan, and I'm with my team members here, Carla and Christelle. We are J2K with our presentation for our game, It's a Pirate's Life for Me. We have centered the game around the idea of pirates. Depending on their character type, the players of this game would be able to play their everlong fantasy of becoming a pirate. Our game allows the player to play as a crew member of the Captain Blackbeard, and their goal is to find all the pieces of the map to get to the treasure. Now, the main difference between our game and other pirate games is our focus on strategy and morality. The player begins the game with a piece of a treasure map leading to Blackbeard's hidden treasure, and the gameplay consists of the player trying to reach the treasure before the other players do. The strategy and morality of the game comes into play when the player attacks or uses other players to their own advantage.
And as for the gameplay, at the start of the game, you as a player have 3 choices of what type of pirate you want to be. You can be a joker, a thief, or an executioner. And this shows the overview of how the game will go, in which we design it and split it into 3 phases. In phase 1, players can't interact with other players, and this is a time frame in which you should scavenge for the map piece, along with collecting weapons and materials in which you can use to your advantage later in the game. And to navigate using a brain-to-brain technology, you have to think which direction you want to go to, and also using visual cues to trigger items you want to interact with. And for the second phase, interaction is now available between players. To approach a player, you simply have to get close enough and use visual cues to choose a player you want to interact with. And when triggered, both commands will appear in both players' screen and will give choices to either attack or negotiate. And in attack mode, it will trigger a minigame, and the winner of the minigame will have 3 options to choose from, either to steal an existing map piece, steal a weapon, or attack to inflict damage. So for the negotiation mode, so you both agree to be introduced to help each other to find and discover a map piece. And once the map piece is found, both players can choose not to share or share the map. And once the third phase is up, All existing and other features will be available throughout the minigame. In addition, you can now team up with other players and engage in co-op minigames in which the winning team can choose one existing map piece from the defeated team. And in order to win, there are two ways. One, by collecting all map pieces before the time limit, and the winning player will be rewarded by in-game currency redeemable for customizing characters, weapon skins, and animated effects. And second would be to collect points to increase your ranking if the time limit is exceeded. And points are tallied based on the amount of the map pieces collected and points obtained from executing actions specific to their pirate type. And all players will be rewarded with in-game currency based on their ranking.
So who can play this game? We designed it so it can be played by family, friends, work colleagues, and even strangers on the internet. Unfortunately, our game will be using a lot of visual cues and cannot be played by the visually impaired. We designed it so that it can be fun for people of different ages. As of 2020, the average gamer is 34 to 36 years old, and that includes parents that play with their children at least once a week. So we've implemented different mini games within the central game that can appeal to different audiences. For example, teens from ages 13 to 17 prefer fighting and action, while the adults from 33 to 52 prefer strategy, sports and racing, music, and rhythm. As well, we allow players an opportunity to either play by themselves or by cooperating with others. And just through the variety of choices that we provide and the different game conditions, such as weather and even materials lying around in the ship, it makes each round a unique experience for players. What are our next steps? So this summer, we'll be prototyping with BBI technology with the help of Brains at Play and the USC Creative Code Collective. As well, we will be adding and modifying our features, such as adding new pirate types, as well as some new levels to keep things interesting for the players.
Now that we have reached the conclusion of our presentation, we would like to take a moment to thank the judges, the people from Brains at Play, and the sponsors for giving us the opportunity to create this game. And thank you all for listening and watching our presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, J2K, for your wonderful presentation. And we're very excited to help you develop your game over the coming months. We'll now be moving into our top 3 submissions for the Brain Games category of the Brains and Games competition. And first up, we will have Infinity presenting their game Brains and Castles.
Greetings from Greece, where the Infinity team celebrates elementary school. Veronica, Alex, Satish, and me, Vasilis, have created a brain game called Brains and Castles. Our game is using a type of brain-to-brain interaction technology that allows players to play together from separate locations, sometime in the distant future. Players can be humans, but also animals such as cats, dogs, octopuses, frogs, and others. The game takes place in a castle and involves 2 teams, prisoners and guardians, who have limited time to complete the game. Players use encrypted messages to communicate with fellow team members. As non-humans also play the game, teams need to communicate at a level that all parties understand. It is challenging but also entertaining. It's rare for humans to communicate with animals.
We came to this idea by first talking about using our brains to throw cookies at each other. Then we thought about being trapped in a tall building and lava chasing you. And before deciding the final game, we thought of a castle with lava chasing you, and you needed to break the codes to escape. We all designed the characters, we composed the music, put our ideas together. So with that, we made Brains and Castles.
For our first idea with the cookies, we would name our game Brains and Cookies. Then we changed the concept of our game. We thought about running with the creature in an obstacle course that we had to surpass effectively. Then we decided to use coded messages to escape from the lava that was chasing us, and we wanted the name of the game to combine a code with a brain. When we finally chose the castle for our background, we found the final name of our game, Brains and Castles.
We created the video firstly by looking at some photos and videos and then thinking about how to incorporate them to the video. They were often places we have visited, like castles or rivers for the mode. For the characters, we used drawing programs or sketches on paper to create them. We also composed an epic sounding music to create an atmosphere for the game. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Infinity Team. This was a wonderful submission, and we're very, very grateful for your participation. Next up, we have Team Mind with their presentation on synergy.
Hello, is everyone ready? Okay. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Janelle.
My name is Lincoln.
My name is Samir.
My name's Alize.
And we are part of Team Mind. So we're here today to talk about our game, Synergy. So the original idea for our game started off primarily focusing on being for those who are hospitalized and who could not participate in traditional gaming, hence allowing BBI Tech to be more of a solution for that. Although in applying more thought to our game, we realized that because of the current pandemic, the game would be more effective if we broadened our player base. Now, by allowing anyone to play our game, it establishes a wide range of players while also incorporating our original idea. With this type of playing style, it creates a stronger community within Synergy and allows more connection between a variety of players. So even when the pandemic is over, Synergy will continue to be an amusing game for anyone to participate in and will turn into a platform for those to connect over long distance.
Synergy is a cooperative two-player game that is controlled using a brain-to-computer interface. Throughout a series of levels, players will navigate or solve challenges that require teamwork and communication, or rather, an absence of communication. The main challenge is getting you and your teammate to think on the same wavelength without the luxury of verbal cues. The movement is straightforward. If you want to move in a certain direction, focus on it. Concentrating in the direction you want to go will directly translate into your character's movement. Levels are completed once both players reach an end goal, opened using a key or buttons. While each level will have an incrementing difficulty, the average playtime for each level will be 5 to 10 minutes. As of now, the 10 levels add up to a total playtime of around an hour and a half. While the game at its core is simple, the overarching result is a complex and enriching experience.
Synergy's goal is to keep people connected in a fun, safe environment using BCI technology. We would like to use our biosensing kit to allow users to mentally and physically control their avatar in-game. Synergy keeps its users anonymous by allowing players to confidently interact with each other without needing to worry about what the other player thinks. While this helps users stay social, anonymity may give rise to some potential teamwork issues. In order to keep an enjoyable game, we plan on implementing certain safeguards to protect the player base against users who could ruin the social environment. If someone does get paired with an unfavorable teammate, our matchmaking service allows players to report them, and then on they can ban or even blacklist certain players based on their connections. So here's a simple diagram of how that would work, where the game server could blacklist a client based on their IP or through the internet. The potential consequences can keep the player base of Synergy fun and social.
Some of the influences we have considered are games such as Mario, a level-based game, Portal 2, a puzzle platform game, and Fireboy and Water Girl, a two-player console game. Taking into account that Portal 2, along with Fireboy and Water Girl, are both revolve around the idea of teamwork. Though we have these amazing games as our influence, we are different not only by using a BBI game, which takes the gaming experience to another level, giving players a new experience other than console and PC gaming, including granting accessibility to those who are not able to play easily on those platforms, but also our game gives a new form of communication, having both players to think alike in order to pass to the next level is unlike any other game we've seen before. Usually with games that are puzzle and two-player based, like Fireboy and Water Girl, we would be able to easily communicate with our partners because they were easily accessible and we knew the person well. With our game partnering players at random gives players a system and helping with familiarizing themselves in social environments, especially in a time with the way we make friends or stay connected has drastically changed.
Here's a quick demo of what our game could look like. So here I can control player 1, and I get this key in order to go to the next level. However, I can't go unless my other teammate gets both. Now we can move on. And as for player 2, same thing. They have to go and work together. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you Team Mind for this wonderful and spirited presentation, as well as that very interesting live demo. Our final team for the Brain Games category is Space Parkour by the Brain Masters.
Okay, dear audience, I am Philip. One of my teammates was unable to connect, so I am representing him. We are the Brain Masters. I would like to say great job to my team for what we have done together. Firstly, we wanted to create a mental game that would be played in the future. We also wanted it to have elements of exploration, movement, and fun, with many challenges for participants, avoiding black holes or asteroids, jumping over galactic mountains, seas, and deserts. That would be really exciting. Space parkour seemed to be the perfect idea, with a mind controller running from planet to stars and from galaxy to another, running the universe, exploring the cosmos, in a game that demands collaboration with a partner, that allows participants to find new friends, maybe aliens, doing something that nobody else has done before. And that this is unstoppable because the universe is vast and more galaxies are created every single moment, even now as we speak.
Hi, my name is Christos. First of all, I would like to say thank you to my team and my teacher for this tremendous experience. Space Parkour is a cooperative multiplayer game which takes place in the galaxy 1 billion years from now in a fun, creative future. Every creature in the galaxy that is advanced enough to connect with its brain can play. In each round, there are 2 players that play together, the controller and the runner. The goal is that the controller, who observes the route, steers the runner in the correct direction so he can finish faster. Meanwhile, the runner follows the instructions that come from the controller's brain. In our game, we do not have winners. The players play peacefully and have fun. You can see the galaxy's ranking of all the players based on how fast they complete the runs. But the goal is for each person to learn about aliens, planets, and discover the galaxy in a fun, peaceful way. But when we have brain-to-brain communication, it can be dangerous, and we thought about these issues. For example, what happens if a player tells another player to do something bad? Well, this situation is quite simple. The controller is mainly blamed here.
Hello, my name is Philip. And I would like to thank my team for their support. At first, we had to come up with a type of game we would make. Although we chose parkour from the beginning, we had difficulties deciding where the scene would take place. In the end, we agreed to choose space because there, your mind clears and it makes you forget your problems back at your own planet. After we overcame the difficulties, we worked in a harmonic way. The whole team loves parkour, and we think this could be liked by a lot of children in the future. Parkour is one of the hardest sports, so it would be nice for our game to be tough. You can benefit by making alien friends, and you can visit with your brain different planets. We wanted our game to have a nice landscape, so having good looking planets was essential. We had a lot of fun while designing the game.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brain Masters, for the...
Hello, we haven't finished. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Hello, my name is Alex, and I'm very proud of my team. I was that to you about how we made the images in the video. The video consists of videos recorded with a camera but mainly stop-motion animation. The music of the video was not found on the internet. It was also made by us using a special application. Most of the pictures were drawn digitally, and others were drawn in paper and then photographed. The characters were mostly drawn in computer or in paper, but some were even 3D printed. The images required for the stop-motion part of the video were photos taken with a camera, drawn on a computer, or even created as a collage. In the part in which we actually recorded with a camera, we were unfortunately able to hide the straw that supported the 3D printed characters. We used a transparent straw with the hope that it wouldn't show, but it still did. We still want to learn a way to wipe out supportive structures for future videos. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation, the Brainmasters.
All right, thank you, Brainmasters, for this wonderful presentation, and we're very excited to work with you over the few months to try to translate this game into something that people can actually play. Now we will be moving on to our VR Neurotech and Health category, where we have 3 wonderful teams submitting games for those cash prizes that I mentioned earlier. First up, we have Team Rocket with their presentation on the Riff.
We are Team Rocket, and my name is Joris, and we approached this competition with an idea that we wanted to alleviate the loneliness of isolated elderly people, essentially, that are well, effectively stuck in nursing homes and sort of provide some kind of an emotional relief through the medium of VR and the new emergent BCI technology. So we kind of approached it from the perspective of just building the thing because of our engineering background and experience. And it just so happens that I already have like all kinds of devices, and essentially it kind of could go something like this, where so the idea is that you are in this VR space with another player, and that shiny thing over there is what we call a visual neurofeedback entity, which can take in shared readings of the BCI. By shared, I mean that every player in the environment can choose a moment to share their emotion or the state that they're in, and to kind of project onto the thing, and that thing will then accumulate those shared emotions and states, and will kind of provide for every other player visually a feedback that will tell what the other person feels like. And there's also a audio component, which is a personalized soundtrack, essentially, that has parameters that respond to the user's BCI readings, and serves sort of as their own personalized neurofeedback mechanism. So this visual feedback entity that you saw is for everyone, and then what you hear in your headphones is just your own thing. So by listening, you decide when to share, and then you share, and then everybody can see that. And JT will.
Yeah, so I was really attracted to this project because the idea of music is something that Juris and I really caught on to, and especially with the older population, music has been invaluable for people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and we wanted to create this visual feedback engine. We kind of titled it like the riff is like the thing you're shooting. The riff is a series of musical notes. So if they could create this visual thing, and the end of it, like a song would be created out of all their emotions together, it would hopefully could share memories, or it would spark memories, either memories of the experience of the game they just played, or memories of music they've listened to in the past that they can share together, and use that as a way to decrease isolation, use it as a way of different mindfulness techniques. As a mental therapist, I'm always looking for ways that we can use technology to kind of treat the mind, and this looked like a really good project for it, and this whole competition was amazing for that. So I really want to thank Garrett and Mary and Tina and everyone else for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah, the stage was very inspiring.
Wonderful. Thank you, Team Rocket. And just letting you know, we feel the exact same way about the inspiration, and we're very grateful for your submission to the competition. Next up, we have we have Immori and their submission, SamsaRa, Remember This Story.
Hello, we are Immori, and we would like to welcome you to the world of SamsaRa to achieve digital immortality, create your past with Jah, and envision your future with Ra. So this will be the outline of our presentation. First, we'll welcome you to the world of SamsaRa. We'll also discuss the prototyping of our game, as well as the patient populations we would like to help, and we will also discuss neuroethics.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ahmed, and I'm going to introduce you to the world of SamsaRa. So we envision this game will exist in a utopian future 100 years from now, where the technology has been developed to upload a human's consciousness past the death of their physical body into this game and universe called SamsaRa. And we call these future players brain-bodied players. So in this future game, there will be two main modes. And the overall goal of the game is to encourage memory and mindfulness interventions to help players who have memory disorders maintain their memory, as well as help people be more mindful in their day-to-day lives. So in these two modes, we have raw mode, which will be in the future version of the game, where players are able to upload their consciousness. It will be an open world mode where the actions of the player will have an effect, a permanent effect on the environment as they play in a multiplayer experience with the other brain-bodied players. However, for current day development, we are focusing on the Jah mode, which is the therapeutic mode. And this mode is meant to help strengthen the memory of the players. And this especially applies to people with memory disorders, especially older adults, as well as rehabilitation and mindfulness through the help of Jah, who is the AI guide for this mode. And we envision that this game will be able to help many different patient populations. And I will now hand it off to Siddhant, who will talk about the technology that we will use to implement this prototype.
Yeah, hey everyone. So I'll focus more on the hardware and software aspects that we have planned for the future. For the hardware aspect, we are planning to use the ganglion board in combination with gel electrodes and electrode cables to get a BCI, to create a BCI headband that can be worn. And the electrodes can be placed on any of the points that you see at the bottom right, the red or the blue points. And the ganglion board is essentially enables us to read 4 different channels. And also it has an accelerometer, which can be used to track the head movements or the movements of the user. And it's also wirelessly controlled, so the user can just wear it and move around without being close to the screen. And moving on to the software aspects, OpenBCI, which provides the ganglion board, already has some API support for popular languages like Python, Java, C++, and C#. Also, they have third-party support for languages like MATLAB, and also Brains@Play.js, developed by Garrett's team, will also add support for ganglion. So we plan to use a combination of all of these languages for development. And also coming on to certain use cases that people have already used ganglion for. We have use cases, for example, SSVEP, where by combining BCI with certain visual prompts, you can have people who cannot directly interact with the game interact via their BCI-based input. And also, this can be used in combination with certain camera-based emotion recognition inputs to more efficiently track the emotional state of the user, which Ahmed will talk in a while from now. And the very basic data processing pipeline used in all of these use cases is the following, where you have a subject who wears the headband, and the data which is obtained from the board is then processed using a filter, some kind of averaging, frequency analysis, and in the end, a machine learning model which helps us classify what the user is trying to do. This can be used to control an actual robot, like the Lego Mindstorm that you see here, or it can also be used to control other things. And then again, this can be aided with visually guided inputs. And so this kind of workflow has already been used in use cases like neonatal seizure detection as a starting point. And now Ahmed will be talking about how we plan to track the emotional state of the user using this headband.
So as you can see here, there are different waveforms from the brain waves that are associated with different states. And so we plan to use this, the data from the BCI device, and we were able to use this in mindfulness interventions to be able to help a user detect in which of these brain modes, which brain waves are more dominant, which will also help with people, for example, who are on the autism spectrum, have autism spectrum disorder. It will be able to help them detect which kind of emotional states they are in or that other people are in, as well as people with a disease like Alzheimer's. They'll be able to see if they can remember certain memories and distinguish between different emotions. Then a future goal could be to use the motor control signals, kind of like in the Lego example, the Lego Brainstorm example, which Sidhant mentioned. But yeah, as you can see here, you can see the different waves and how they could be interpreted. And you can get this data from the brain control interface device. And now I'm going to pass it off to Nadia, who will talk a little bit more about the patient populations.
Thank you. We're going to build SamsaRa to help people practice mindfulness and improve memory. Our gel mode will be especially useful for people with memory and cognitive disorders. There are more than 6 million Americans who are right now in different stages of Alzheimer's, as well as around 5.5 million people with autism. Our gel mode will help people with AD and memory disorders remember their positive habits so that they can maintain these habits through the progression of their disease. While using SamsaRa, people with AD will be receiving constant reminder and encouragement feedbacks, which in the long term will help them to remember certain events better. For patients with autism who may rely on habit and regularity, SamsaRa may provide daily creative and mindfulness sessions. Autism patients
will also learn to recognize their emotions by the system of feedbacks provided by SamsaRa demo. Now I'm giving the control to Aya, who will talk about neuroethics.
Hello, so I'm Aya. So we would like to briefly discuss a number of ethical issues that SamsaRa presents. This includes a question as to how much agency and autonomy players have in actual gameplay, as well as the type of data collected. And we target and kind of account for this issue by being transparent with players about the type of data being collected and how this data collected in clinical settings will be used to further the greater good of humanity within the 21st century and beyond. We have also considered player safety, specifically how external headgear may be comfortable enough for players to play for long periods of time. And so we would like to work with certified professionals to ensure that headgear is safe and easy and comfortable to use. Furthermore, if this game is used in a clinical and research setting, then we will have the guidance of institutional review boards of affiliated universities to formulate consent forms for individual players. And at the beginning of the game, players will go through the consent form in extensive detail with the certified clinician. And so brief introduction of the team and how we will, we have the tools and the skills we need to develop this game. So again, my name is Aya Musla. I go to USC. I have a behavioral biology, bioinformatics, and neuroimaging background. Pass on to Nadia.
Yeah, I'm Nadia. I am a data scientist and a bioinformatician. I'm also volunteering in a neuroimaging with deep learning laboratory at USC. I'm really interested in creating products in health tech that will help improve people's lives.
Hey everyone, I'm Siddhant and I'm a master's student at USC studying computer science. I have experience on working with computer vision applications and also past game experience development and mixed reality.
And I'm Ahmed. I'm a software developer based in San Francisco. I'm also pursuing my master's degree in computer science at the University of San Francisco. And I have experience developing 3D graphics for games using Three.js library.
And so we would also like to pose some audience questions. We would like to open up this conversation to everyone here and invite everyone to our social session. So things we can talk about is our game, prototyping, neuroethics, and we would also love to hear your feedback. And so we would like to thank everyone that was associated with making our game. So Kayla Abdallah made the cover art. Laura, she was a wonderful game advisor for our game document and everything in between. Garrett Flynn gave excellent advice. And then Brains at Play and the sponsors associated, as well as Gnosis for providing us with our grant. And if you have any questions, please email us at immorilife@gmail.com and I'll drop in the chat. Thank you.
And we do apologize for going a bit over time here.
No worries, guys. Yeah, thank you for the great conversation, great presentation. And anybody that's interested in talking with any of these teams is welcome to join their breakout room in about 10-15 minutes when we start the informal social session. But to wrap things up, we have one more presentation by Corpus Callosum, who presented actually 3 submissions, Quell, Sensate, and Noosphere. Quell won the VR Neurotech and Health category and will be receiving $5,000 from the USC Smart VR Center. So welcome, Corpus Callosum.
Hi, everyone. We're team Corpus Callosum from USC, and we're going to be presenting VR exposure therapy type game, Quell.
Yeah, so following the format that you guys gave on the form, in a wellness-centered future, a few years from now, there's a semi-cooperative BBI game for 2 to 3 players, which is played for phobia and PTSD exposure therapy in an office. And so basically, it's just a therapeutic game that allows for low-risk exposure therapy. It's fine. So the game is meant to help people suffering from phobias, PTSD, trauma, etc., to become more comfortable with their stressors, and by monitoring biometric feedback throughout gameplay, a moderator can help gain insight into how the therapy is going and change the situations as needed. And then, so within this, it's 2 to 3 players. So it would be the people or person who are aiming to overcome their trauma, and they will be interacting with their environment using their headset, VR controllers, and what they'd end up doing is dealing with various situations that would cause them to confront these stressors in a low stress, low risk sort of way. So just incrementally getting more accustomed to dealing with these things that make them uncomfortable. And then the moderator is there to keep track of the players, to be like a therapist or researcher who's monitoring all the biometric feedback and their brain waves to make sure they're having a positive experience and that it's not making their trauma or PTSD worse in any way, shape, or form. So they'd be running the game simulation. They determine when things need to change. The difficulty needs to increase in any way.
Okay, so players would interact with the virtual environment to overcome any obstacles that arise. So, they could experience, depending on which fear, they want treated, they could experience any variety of scenarios, which would aim to help them solve small puzzles or do calming tasks while feeling like they're in a safe environment. And the obstacles would represent their fears or phobias or traumas or whatever tribulations they have to get over and, help conquer their fears or phobias or traumas. And to make sure that it's a safe space, the moderator could be, monitoring all their biometric and user feedback. And if they see any issues, they could change the obstacles or, tone something down or make it, stronger. And yeah, if there was, for example, if someone had a really debilitating fear of heights or something, we could have them climb a mountain to try to collect a flag and overcome, small hurdles that might, be what you'd be accustomed to with that issue. Or fear of crowded spaces like claustrophobia. It could be you could be in your own bubble solving puzzles, or walls could be closing in on you, or there could be a lot of people or things generated around you that you just need to, deal with. So yeah.
So that was Quell, the main game that won the VR Neurotech Health category. We did have a couple other submissions that we'll go through very briefly, but this was just some quick cover art for that game.
Yeah.
Our other game was also in the VR Neurotech Health category. So if you want to go, Ryan.
Yeah, sure. Sensate is it's an echolocation based puzzle game. So you're trying to develop your own sense of echolocation and interpreting vibrational patterns or other information that you wouldn't be getting through your sense of sight. So.
Yeah. So in a more accessible future, a century from now, it's a semi-cooperative BBI game for 2 to 3 or 1 to 3 players, depending on how you'd like to play it, which is played for expanding sensory perceptions. And it can be played in your home or in a studio. And so it's a pseudo-random level-based echolocation game that has players train themselves to use echolocation to move through a room without bumping into anything or hurting themselves in any way.
Yeah, so our game would be about simulating and exploring echolocation, and it's an educational tool, and it's using phosphene stimulation, which is the type of stuff you see when you close your eyes, or the stars, and it would be stimulating that and sound vibrations and things that aren't from your literal sense of sight in VR to try to interpret that to get through virtual rooms despite not seeing them physically. And yeah, and you could have a moderator if the person has a visual impairment and they need some setup beforehand, and you could give a safe space for someone essentially to just practice echolocation without real life situations. And it could be used as training for the visually impaired, and even just for the curious, for sensory improvement and expansion, or just testing yourself, whatever you want.
Yeah, so as I kind of said earlier, you can play it with 1 or 2 people, and then a moderator if you are visually impaired or would just like to have someone keeping track of you. So you can play the game either alone or cooperatively. If it's single player mode, it's more of like a training kind of session where you'd be finding your way through a room and at incrementally harder levels and with more obstacles around you. In multiplayer mode, you'd have two players start at opposite sides of the room and try and find their way through each other, through the obstacles to find each other and meet partway in the middle. And then players would be using their echolocation to gain both oral and abstract visual feedback. So you would gain the sound waves that is typical of normal echolocation. And we would also give some abstract visual feedback with the phosphenes just to have that added sense in addition to it. And then with some haptic feedback from controllers, the player would be able to tell how well they're interpreting signals. So if they were to run into an obstacle, they'd get some sort of feedback to know that and make sure that they are aware of everything around them beyond just the oral input and output of the sound waves. So they'd also get this quantified feedback at the end of it to see how well they did in avoiding obstacles. So, and we mentioned a couple times phosphenes. These are just a couple quick examples. We liked the picture on the bottom right because it looked a lot like the Brains and Games banner. But yeah, this type of visual feedback is very interesting because it's kind of like when we close our eyes and we see some colors and lights and all that, or when we rub our eyes and we just see these like shapes that aren't really there. This type of visual feedback is cool because it can also be perceived by blind individuals with some neural stimulation.
Yeah, so players, yeah, would be expanding their sensory abilities, you know, and all of the quantitative feedback, sound waves, that type of stuff. And yeah, their performance would be measured, like quantified, like, you know, it could be, you know, a speed timer or this, that, and they could be trying to improve it. And as we said earlier, like it would be ascending levels of difficulty. And yeah, and blind people would still be able to experience all the oral and haptic, you know, feedback in the game and learn this useful skill in a low risk environment that simulates reality, but isn't reality. So yeah.
Yeah. And then our final submission, we can go through real quick, is called Noosphere.
Yeah, so it's about cooperative development training and like community building, essentially, was the idea with this one. And yeah, we could go to that. Yeah, I'll read this. In an expansive future, 1 decade from now, there's a cooperative BBI game for 4 to 8 players per whatever game world, which is played for empathy and cooperation building and wilderness survival in an open space. We can participate.
Yeah, so what is this game exactly? It's basically a teamwork and community building game that would allow players to work together to kind of form a society. And the players would be placed in an unfamiliar environment where they're going to have some resources, maybe not everything that they would initially think to need, and they're going to have to work cooperatively to understand everyone's position and to survive in this unknown society, unknown environment with it that has like a changeable landscape that is programmed into the game, so it changes over time, and it changes based on the player's brainwaves, so their moods and reactions. So the more positive everyone is, or the happier and more relaxed everyone is, the better it'll be for them overall. And it's very much like a sandbox environment. A lot of different things can happen depending on how people want to play the game. So the purpose of it is to build this small community and establish a baseline for teamwork and cooperation with the group. So it's there to positively enforce this type of teamwork and cooperation in the virtual space where it is a little bit lower stakes. Anyone can play, but based on how the game works, those who would exhibit more antisocial behavior and more narcissistic behavior would make it harder for everyone and make themselves be a little bit harder to work with and have not less points, but they would have less power within the game. And then players would start secluded and everyone would have to do small tasks. And this is to collect data, to process it, to get a baseline for behavior when in the teams. And yeah, this would give insight the players to understand how they're interacting with other people. So at the end of the game, there's like a little wrap up of here's how you did.
We're a little pressed on time, so I'll try to go through this slide quickly. But yeah, it's just about working cooperatively, you know, and you wouldn't necessarily be restricted on being like on a team with someone else, but you know, you'd be expected to behave in a way that's pro-social, and like, you know, we'd be monitoring your feedback to see like, you know, your tone of voice or like the ways that communicate, which are the most conducive towards people paying attention or processing the information that you're giving them in the best way. So it's about learning to be a better listener, leader, relationship builder, manager. It's about good teamwork and positive communication. Yay.
And then just a couple of applications would be for not just like team building workshops and all that, like leadership summits, family therapy, settling disputes between people, just making sure that everyone can understand everyone else's emotions and learn how to get beyond any issues they're having and work together. So, yeah, and then as we spoke a little bit about with monitoring brain activity and emotional content, it would be processing the audio emotionally to give an accurate depiction of each person's voice and how they are doing within, like, oh, are you being empathetic? You sound like this to other people. Are they interpreting this differently? And then just heartbeat and mood sensors, excuse me, and then monitoring brain activity so that we have this actual like quantificational feedback to give people that will quantify the attention paid by listeners and your own retention to following an instruction and how well you're doing overall, based on where your baseline was and where you were by the end of the game. Were you communicating in a positive way? Were you interacting in a positive way? So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And thank you, Corpus Callosum, for the wonderful presentations on your games. We will now be moving into our informal networking session until around 11 a.m. PT, if you all can stay. But before you leave, we do want to acknowledge that this is not really the end of the competition, or at least the efforts that we want you to make. It is only the beginning. In fall 2021, we hope to partner with BCI Games and BCI for Kids program at the University of Calgary to put on the BCI Game Jam. And this takes a nod from the 2019 BCI Game Jam, where 9 submissions of brain-controlled games were given to kids with cerebral palsy, and they were judged by them and ranked. And we hope to pull off something similar in the near future. So we're still working out all of the details. But if you are interested in participating in this game jam, where you will actually create a game for these children over 2 days of intense development, please follow BCI Games at the BCI Gamers and Brains at Play on Twitter. I'll put the links in the chat. And other than that, let's get started with the social session. So I am going to open all of the breakout rooms. This is a list of who is in what room, and they're also named by each of the teams. On the bottom toolbar of Zoom, you should be able to open up a breakout rooms view and just choose which room you would like to join. And if that is not a possibility, then I would be happy to help anybody get into the rooms of their choice. But I'll stop the recording and we can keep it a little bit informal now. Feel free to go to as many teams as you would like and give your feedback, comments, and just have interesting conversations.